Classroom control and learning efficiency are products of good teaching. Learning must be made meaningful. Interest in work for which learners see a purpose provides its own discipline.
Hey kids out there in TV land, we're going to try to race through some basic definitions and ideology today that are basically loose interpretation of the Constitution views versus strict interpretation of the Constitution views. So really important, especially in AP government course, or if you're a political scientist, or you just are crazy on the internet watching this for no reason, you need to really, I think, understand whatever side you're on, the other side. Because if you don't understand the other side, then you really don't know what the hell you're talking about. So people that generally today accept a loose interpretation of the Constitution believe that the Founding Fathers wrote that document with broad language and with kind of clauses that allowed the federal government to address kind of needs as they arose through societal changes. People that believe this generally believe that the founders had in their minds that the Articles of Confederation was a document that had to go because it had no flexibility. Therefore, the Constitution needed to be made flexible in order to deal with things later down the road. So instead of geniuses who said, we know the truth, they're geniuses that say, we know some truths, but we don't know lies ahead of us. And inventions and technology and, world changes have really, in the eyes of the loose interpreters, given the Constitution the flexibility to address these challenges. What do they point to in the Constitution that backs up their arguments? They point to the preamble, the language of general welfare being in the preamble, the first sentence of Section 8 of Article 1, legislative power, saying Congress has the power not only to provide for the common defense, but to protect or to promote the general welfare. So using that with implied powers through the Elastic Clause, that if that's a power, the Elastic Clause says Congress shall pass all laws necessary and proper to execute those foregoing powers, then you have yourself some muscle. And people that believe in a loose interpretation believe that it's not like, absolute, that, forever we have limitations on that type of power, the biggest being our social contract. That the Declaration, which calls for a social contract, is found in the Constitution through indirect and direct democracy. So therefore, we control the power the federal government has, and then we add the Bill of Rights, a substantive democracy idea, and we can protect that through the unwritten power of judicial review. So if the federal government does something that is glossy with language, like, let's be honest, the healthcare law, takes the language of the Interstate Commerce Clause and then rationalize that health care is that important as an interstate commodity that the federal government has the power to, not the absolute power to, but through representative democracy to take action to regulate that industry in order to promote that general welfare. And if you don't like that, they would say, then you need to elect a different government. But the Supreme Court, at the end of the day, interprets that language. But it's all a constitutional game. Sometimes I hear, and I'm going to get a little bit political, but you got to be honest here with your own opinions a little bit. But if somebody says, Obama, he doesn't believe in the Constitution, he tried to pass health care reform. No, he just sees it differently. But it's the same words that we're all playing with. It's like a broad rule in the game of Monopoly where you're arguing over the meaning. So generally, that would be it. There's also an amendment procedure in there where we can actually physically change the Constitution. So I hear sometimes libertarians, and I love libertarianism in different degrees, maybe not much as my libertarian foes and friends out there, but when a libertarian says that it is unconstitutional to steal from the rich and give to the poor, well, no, it is constitutional. It's the 16th Amendment, which is part of the Constitution because the amendment clause of what it would be, Article 5, 6, whatever, allows the Constitution to be amended, which was done in the early 20th century, meaning the 16th Amendment's constitutional. It's crazy. Okay, sometimes on a test, you got to be careful. If you're early federal government, loose interpretation can also mean growth of federal power in terms of military, executive power. And that's when we can get into, the argumentation over Nixon and the Vietnam War or the Patriot Act and Bush or habeas corpus basic rights in Obama. This is all good stuff, but that's also loose interpretation, so you got to be careful. All right, people who generally believe in strict interpretation or in the Supreme Court sense, judicial restraint, believe that the Founding Fathers, rather than writing a document that was supposed to be changed, they were more like writing a Bible. and the Bible is not to be interpreted, the Bible being the Constitution, that the rules were set up for the game, and that we play that game according to the rules, and that you don't play with the words of the rules. You live to not only what the word says, but to the intent of the human being who wrote it. Antonio Scalia on the Supreme Court is an original intentionalist, meaning that you look back at the intentions of the founding fathers. So they point to lots of things besides just the words that they believe are limiting words, but they would point to, for instance, the powers in the Constitution that are limited. In Article 2, Article 1, ex post facto laws. Habeas corpus is mentioned in language that says that it only can be suspended in times of crisis. There's also, of course, the Bill of Rights, the biggest for people that believe in limited government being the 10th Amendment, which is the Reserve Powers Amendment, which states that all powers not delegated to the federal government, given to the federal government exclusively, are therefore reserved for the states. So basically, this is the game of federalism. People who believe in strict interpretationalists, or strict interpretation of the Constitution, are libertarians, generally conservatives, except if you're talking about maybe foreign policy and executive power, where they might be looser with the executive clauses in Article 2, as opposed to progressives who see the Constitution as a document that needs to be seen through the critical eye of the events that are in front of us, with the ideas of having the Bill of Rights, having checks and balances, of course, and also having the social contract as the ultimate string between the people and their government. So, I think that's good. Strict interpretation versus loose interpretation. OMG, you need to know that today. Yep.
That's all, folks.